Welcome, Anjan.
Thank you, Carlos, for having me.
CPTO at Fivetran. Why don't we start by giving the audience a little bit of context around what is Fivetran today?
By the way, CPO at Fivetran. My colleague Helge will get very mad. So, Fivetran, our mission is to make data movement as reliable as electricity. So we move data from I don't know a thousand sort of sources, be it databases, SaaS, vendors, file systems, unstructured data, and move it in one place so you can kind of do analytics, AI, and so on. And we're extremely reliable, very easy to use. We're sort of the market leader in this space.
Let's talk about this because back in the day, data used to be super fragmented, right? There were like data lakes, data warehouses, data everywhere, CDPs. As I hear you talk about data movement, like how is that different today?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a few sort of things that have happened in the last few years. I mean, ETL kind of converted to ELT, so you didn't want to kind of do the transformation. You want to do the transformation uh, uh, once you kind of put the data in a warehouse. So kind of Fivetran led that for the last few years, sort of what we call open, the modern data stack. And now, like, there's a few changes that I think that are happening. First is like advent of data lakes, where for a long time, like customers were putting their data into warehouses, but like you could only kind of use one analytics sort of engine to do it. And now you're like, well, that doesn't quite make sense. You want to be able to talk to multiple query engines, like multiple analytics engines, BI. So data lakes have become very popular. Customers own their data and storage. At Fivetran, we're sort of calling this open data infrastructure, this ability to really kind of have a very open and interoperable standard for your entire data stack. Moving your data, having access to data in like a central data lake controlled in Iceberg. And then you talk to any query engine, like it could be Snowflake, Databricks, and so on. But more importantly, I think now it's not humans querying them, it's like agents querying them. So agents are not going to care about like, hey, I want to go optimize it like in this vendors. They'll truly want an open thing. And the permutations and the way agents are going to sort of query these are going to change. Or it's very likely you might have a query engine that's not been invented yet. Like the pace at which AI innovation is going, it's very likely you get something that's not been invented yet. And then you kind of want to do activation, sort of send the data back. You want to do analytics and so on. But the core thing that I think we want to think about for customers is how do you truly make this open? You're seeing vendors in the space that close this down. Like sort of everyone's like initial impression is like, oh, AI is great. Oh, so then my data is more impressive. And then system of records are going like, okay, I'm going to like close this down. I think that's a terrible strategy. If anything, AI is going to find ways around it, and like an AI agent will just sort of extract data or build something, or sort of. I think that's the wrong behavior, and we are pushing back against that. We want your entire data stack, which is moving your data, storing it, analytics, writing back, agents, analytics, needs to be truly, truly, truly open. And closing it down is a very bad strategic mistake.
So, what do you mean by keeping it open? Meaning, a lot of providers call themselves system of record, and they want you to go there as the ultimate source of truth, while you can still integrate with other pieces of the puzzle, right? So, how is that different than what you just said about keeping it an open infrastructure?
Yeah, there's like a couple of dimensions of this. If you are a system of record, and there's many of them in finance and sales, or Salesforce or HubSpot or Workday, you can kind of name tens of these. You could first like provide a charge for getting the data out. Like that would be one form of closure. You could not provide an API, a good API to get the data out. You could not provide data throughput. Like you cannot say, like you could say, look, you can get data out, but I'm like really severely going to rate limit. So there are all these tricks you could do to like prevent your data out. And that I think is not a good idea. And you see some vendors that are truly open, which is like, I'm going to provide you the ability to give you the data as it changes every minute, every hour, no restrictions. I'm going to make it in a really good format, like APIs and so on. I'm going to make it consumable. Like that would be like a very open standard. And if you're like an analytics vendor, you are saying, look, the storage is for a customer. You can connect to multiple engines. You'll make it AI friendly. Like those are two definite. A closed vendor would say, hey, I'm only going to give you some data. I'm not going to give you an API. By the way, I'm going to severely make it rate limited. Let's say if you have system of record with say 100 million records, I'm only going to let you take 1 million records a day. I'm not going to give you the changes. I'm not going to tell you what you deleted. You're going to have to figure out what deletes happened. So they can kind of create all these sort of roadblocks. I think what happens in that case in the future is customers go, okay, I'm going to go to a vendor that will be open, or my AI will create some custom workflow. I think it'll backfire. And I think sort of you see this on the source side, but I think it's also now becoming more important on the analytics side because now you've consolidated all your data and you want to then open this up. Like I think the amount of code that will get written will explode by 100. The amount of queries that you'll run will explode by a couple orders of magnitude. Like we're already seeing this in our company. The number of queries that we're running on analytics has exploded because now every PM, every analyst, every engineer is running their own queries. And like that pattern has just exploded. And like, will the standard model work or will we want some more efficient, cheaper options? And so I think that needs to evolve. And it'll break down if you close this down.
And honestly, as a user, I think that makes total sense. Like conceptually, I want to be able to use natural language
Yeah.
to gather insights. And I really don't care where the data is stored as long as I can access it and get the results that I'm looking for. That said, I can see how the systems of record, they want to close their data because they think it's a moat, right? So in a model where you are open, you are providing those connections. What is your moat?
Yeah. I mean, our mode is we deeply care about transporting the data in a way that's reliable as electricity. Like we're going to make sure we pump the data to what either humans need for analytics or AI. And over, I don't know, a dozen years or so, we've looked at every combination and we know the incidental complexity in all these systems, and we're very good at managing it, right? And that is kind of what we'll continue doing. We think the demand for this has exploded with AI. You're like, before, you're transporting the data only for humans. Now you kind of need to transport this for agents. And I think you need to do it at you probably the scale at which it goes higher. So that is what we are seeing. We're seeing what used to be just a human use case has now become a very strong AI use case. And there's sort of explosion in two areas. Like the demand for data obviously increases, but before we would only support say 1,000 sources, applications, and so on. Now with AI, we've added close to 2,000 in the last 3 months we have this technology called Connector SDK, which is AI driven. And as customers build a lot more applications, so there's going to be a cardinality explosion in the sources that you support. Before they'd be like, look, I buy 10 SaaS applications, a few databases and so on. Now they're probably going to build 30 more. You still need to get all the data in one place. And we just want to be very good at that problem.
By the way, so last year you also acquired DBT Labs. So curious to know how that connects with your thesis.
Yeah. I mean, DBT, first of all, very adjacent products. We kind of, they're sort of, I call them like the OG, sort of the original two in the modern data stack. Fivetran sort of disrupted the EL market and DBT, the transformation. And DBT is super open. They're open source. They have very strong community. We love that thesis. And we thought like it was the right thing to do in this age. And together we're thinking about open data infrastructure, which is we're going to have an open way to move data, do transformation, store data in an open way, and then let customers pick whatever analytics engine that they want to use, whether BigQuery, Snowflake, or whatever, or Databricks, or some new thing that the AI agent wrote. And increasingly, we're going to make this entire thing not just for humans, but really for AI. It's like it's open everywhere. You can run lots of queries, and it's going to be as cheap and optimized for users as it can be.
I want to double click on what you're saying about optimizing for agents too. I'm seeing this movement in maybe more consumer facing products where you're defining them in a way that an agent would discover the key information before the human, so then they can present the human with the facts and then the human can make a decision. How does that translate to your world where you are also trying to provide this data to agents first?
Yeah, it's very interesting. One, and like it starts with the core principle that when you design something, you think of agent as a persona. And like practical things, like you want to make sure that the examples that you write are sort of like in our case, we have a CLI for creating connectors. We've tested across all the models and it's really, really good. Like whether you provided a plugin or a skill or the context, lots of examples, lots of variations. And sort of testing across that harness of the various models. And the models are changing very rapidly, as you know. And you want to make sure it's super optimized that for workflow. And in some sense, it's like we pride in ourselves that if like you go and ask ChatGPT, like, hey, if you build a connector, who would you use? And it says, okay, I'm going to pick the SDK from Fivetran, right? So we want to kind of go optimized to that level where AI is recommending. But also if a customer uses AI, all the things that make it really, really easy are sort of thought of. But I think at the first principles level, it is thinking about if someone used AI to use our product, in our case, build a connector and so on, how is that experience? Is it really, really good? And then that's on the data movement side, on the analytics side. I mean, we're already seeing this where agents can blow up, run dumb queries, do stupid things. So, like, what kind of safeguards can you build in those cases where you provide like a more governance or cheaper alternatives for queries? The thing you're seeing is like humans, if you want to run a query, we don't want to wait. Like the latency matters, but agents they can wait. Like they can run for many hours, or they can do stupid things. They can sit there for a while. So you want to like say, okay, maybe give them some time. Maybe they'll do the cheaper option, and you'll give me the answers. There's like lots of these permutations where, like we've sort of built the products for humans to be like instant, low latency. For agents, we're rethinking it. Like no, like maybe they'll kind of take the long route because it's going to save them 10x the cost, but it's going to take them 2 hours. But like an agent can do that. Like it has nothing better to do. So there's some like examples on how to rethink the use case for agents.
One thing that comes to mind, we work with a lot of large enterprises that are trying to wrap their head around AI transformation, right? And they've all piloted different tools at this point, and they maybe got to an aha moment, but data comes up as one of the main reasons or excuses for them not to get over the hump and fully integrate with their context. That's the thing. And they would say, hey, our data is fragmented, we need to clean it up, a bunch of other things. Like, what are some practical ways for this type of companies? And I'm talking like Fortune 500 to expedite some of that, to not use that as an excuse, but to start kind of seeing some value before the whole data set is perfect?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like the funny thing is the input, the advice you would give them is the same you would have given them in the analytics world. Like nothing has really changed, which is like, hey, first of all, like if all your data is not in one place to do analytics, like that's the thing. Or at least you start with which systems do you really care about? Probably your system of record for sales, your customers, your retention, the way you think about your more important KPIs. You want to make sure they're all connected. You still talk to customers where they haven't done that, and that sounds a little crazy that you have all this information you don't do. Now before you could only do structured analytics. Now you could do structured analytics, unstructured, and you can get a lot more intelligence. So first step is like your data is in one place. You hit on another important thing is like semantics. Uh, you kind of want to go figure out like what your important tables, like what do they mean, definitions, and so on. That goes a long way. Now there's ways to shortcut that now. With AI, you provided like a cold table, it can kind of do an okay job, but you're going to get a lot better usage, a lot less tokens if you have more semantics figured out. Like so teams have built a catalog or they've got information about metadata across their business processes and data. So that'll be the second thing. I think you still want to architect a good data platform because if you think about it, you're going to see an explosion of cost because the demand has gone up now because everybody can just write in English and ask a question. If you've got queries that are unoptimized in your warehouse or analytics, that's going to cost a lot. And this is a thing I've been hearing a lot in the last few weeks where I had dinner with the CDO and he's like, he had to do limits for the first time in his tenure because it's just costs are skyrocketing. We're seeing the same thing on our own internal usage. And that's like a not great thing to do. If you're like the IT leader and you tell your team, by the way, everybody gets $50 of warehousing credits per month. So you can ask. So that's like a really silly thing. And that could be like, just do the basic, like cache things, do basic sort of analytics techniques and make sure you have a warehouse. Or do the thing we're talking about, open data infrastructure, like come up with a proper analytics thing. And you're right in thinking you don't need to do everything. Like pick a workflow or a use case or a business process, make sure that's done, and then go through it. So all the things we've been talking about, people are assuming that sort of what we've learned through hard computer science and analytics kind of goes out the window. It doesn't. Like you still need to get your data in one place. You still need to think about semantics. You still need a good architecture. You can't just like have agent call your data like 100 times a day. That's super expensive. So you kind of want to do all the good things that data analytics have taught us over the last 10 years. And AI is just going to be a massive catalyst on top of that.
The challenge I see with trying to follow best practices is that it can take long. Obviously, it's the right move to do, but for a lot of these companies, they are built on so much data that is like, oh my God, by the time we even try to get started, we'll be dead, right? So I'm wondering if now that there's more, like there are ways for these companies to maybe rely more on AI to build that connection, to make sense of the data in ways that are good enough for them to get started. I imagine the cost, as you said, can be higher just because maybe the machine has to think a little harder, but still worth it, just so they don't get into this analysis paralysis.
100%. Like I do think now a lot of the things you could do took months, probably take days or at the best weeks. So you don't like moving your data, certainly in our case, if you don't have a connector, it would have taken you a few months for us to build. Today, you can just go on the website and build it, like if you don't have a source. So, or if you can use Claude to go write some DBT sort of transformation scripts, and you can kind of get best practices to do. So all of that has really accelerated if you use coding agents, Claude or Codex or multiple teams agents. So I think those two things are not like at odds. You could do them really fast, and you could do the basics right, and the cycle time is reduced significantly. You could probably get something up and running very fast. So it's like now, before, like, sure, like you didn't have the expertise. A lot of that is kind of like, a lot of those sort of excuses are falling off. So I think now if you're like a CIO or CDO, you really want to get your data house in order, I think.
That has been a huge unlock for me personally.
Yeah.
I remember I was held hostage by the data of the engineering team. I asked a question I would consider basic, such as what was the revenue in the last 7 days, and then I have people creating a dashboard or a meeting for a meeting, and then I get a subpar answer. Now, literally, I can ask that question on Cowork, and it's connecting obviously to my analytics platform. I don't even need to log in into the analytics platform.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's the power of it. Now, you would not ask a lot of questions. You'd only ask, what you mentioned, you're only doing that, like, I'm going to set up a meeting. If it's a really important question. But what if you had like 50 other questions that that don't meet the bar? You're in a meeting and you're just like, I wonder what this is. And I do that now all the time. I would like ask questions, and I'm running lots of analytics BigQuery questions, or I'm looking at our code sometimes because I wouldn't have done that in the past. Or I'm doing lots of interesting things that I would have never done because it's a lot easier now.
I'm super curious about that. Like, tell me more about how you've gone AI native.
Yeah, maybe I can talk a little bit about our team too. Like I feel like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid now. And let me start with the team, because I think team is interesting, and I'll tell you my story. I think our team, the product team, has gone strongly AI first. And I think there's like an inflection point about 3 weeks ago where we did like an internal hackathon, and people started building like these AI agents, and they realized to build an agent is just like super easy. You just have to create a skill, which is a bunch of text, and then you're done. And then like it's like exploded since then. Like I had a PM was telling me yesterday that he looked at 250 sort of churn customers or patterns and analyzed all of them. And he said the last time it took him like a month to do that. So he went through so many gong calls, so many like support tickets. He was able to do that. And like, well, it took a long time for the AI to do it, but he got the analysis and he was so happy. And he's like, I'm so delighted now because I can actually go talk to customers. Like all the analytics, all the analysis that he would do. We had a PM who kind of took a PRD and kind of wrote a pretty good first draft using AI. It's very liberating for some of them to go and say, I mean, obviously we're going to put in production, he's going to work with engineering and they're going to make it amazing. But it's very liberating for him to say, I have an idea. I made it really like, here you go. I took the initiative to do it. We were trying to launch a new product. And we had like a PM and an engineering lead who are like, you know what? We're going to create a little agent BDR. We're going to go on LinkedIn, and like they took some credits and they went and got 30 customers on their own, which is like, wow, like you would have waited for sales and marketing. They would have done all that. We'll still do that. But he took initiative, and like before, it would have been a lot of work. It's just like I sent an email, I have to read it, I have to wait for them. They automated the heck out of that. And now they just went and they have the most kind of sort of input for this, right? Because they built a product, there's a PM and sort of engineering lead. So they kind of had this energy, and like that helps, right? It kind of shows in the outreach. So I think it's really catching on. It's a massive. It's obviously like it's a threat for software companies. Sure, I don't want to diminish that, but it's also a massive for cultures that adapt. It is very liberating because your output just explodes. So we've kind of like. Before we were in this mindset of like, hey, please use AI. Now we're like, if you're not using AI, they're like, you're crazy. Like you must use your agents. You must manage your agents. So we really pivoted on that. I'm sort of the same way. I've got a bunch of agents that I'm running for my personal things like paying bills, looking at I have a bunch of Substacks that I never get to. So I have it kind of read some of them and tell me which ones I should pay attention to. It's kind of tracking my calendar things. If I want to do research, I'm using a bunch of agents, building sort of some side projects myself. So it's been very liberating, and like you're able to do a ton more than you can, and that's kind of like what I hear from my product team, that they're very excited now to kind of go like all the boring work they can do, because you kind of have to do the boring work. You have to do your support tickets. You have to go do your churn analysis. You have to go do all the things that are kind of critical to being a PM. They can still do it, and they can do the fun things too now, like we'll talk to customers and so on. So sort of like the role is like they're more empowered, I think, and will be more successful in that role.
Let me go a little deeper there, because I think a lot of people, myself included, would go to x.com and suddenly see people talking about how they built something incredible, but they only see the end result. And there's such a big gap between current knowledge and end result. So just following some of the examples you gave, that LinkedIn bot or agent that help you collect leads, or even some of your other agents that help you automate some of the work. What is your tech stack? How do you actually get it going?
Yeah, I mean, sort of the PM that sort of did the PRD, he had used this new concept in Claude called Teams Agents, which is he created multiple agents. And he created multiple skills. He created like a persona of an engineer skill, persona of an architect skill, a persona of like a QA, business process, and so on. And he kind of spent a lot of time writing that. And what he told me is he also spent a lot of time writing the first PRD. Like he obsessed about the details. He broke it down into very granular task lists. And then like he ran it like for a couple of weeks. And he said, look, agents make a lot of dumb mistakes. He said it wasn't easy. It wasn't like click a button and shows up. It took him 2 weeks, and they would make some really good choices, and they would also make some really dumb choices. So it wasn't like a turn it on and leave. It was like constantly monitoring what they've done. And like you had to check every task, did they do it? Okay, then like giving them direction. So he said it definitely would have, it's a massive accelerant over like a team or him doing it manually, but it wasn't like a free thing to do. And the thing that helped in our case, like he was able to sort of connect the SRE agent to our systems. Like he was able to connect the build system to our build system. He was able to kind of he ran everything locally. So he was able to connect it to our systems where he can kind of get code and so on. But the other thing that he said that was interesting to me in a sort of read up, he's like, agents are very bad during compaction. So the sort of in long running processes, you do a thing. And then, okay, so the context window goes, they make really bad mistakes at that edge. So he came up with some interesting way to kind of like force the agent to start, read the context. Like he obsessed about that problem, and that seemed to have made it better. But is it better than? Is it easy? I don't think it is easy yet. You kind of have to learn how to use these things and get good at it, like we got good at so many other things. But at the end result is powerful, I would say.
Yeah, and I know this is a work in progress, but ultimately, I think having a leader at the top that is not only supporting but committing to this change is critical. And so I'm curious about what other decisions or constraints you've created to force
Yeah.
the team to continue going, kind of defaulting to the AI as a way to find the solution before requesting more headcount or something else.
No, it's a good. I think you definitely want to create a AI friendly culture. It starts with like one, hey, giving them access to the tools so they don't feel like, oh, it's like a burden to use a Claude or a Codex or so on. You want to give them good examples. Like, so one of the things we do is every all hands or every meeting, we did like an AI spotlight. Hey, someone doing it. Like, here you go, how it works. Uh, I think you, as a leader, you kind of have to do it yourself. Like, otherwise, you're not credible. Uh, and then, like, things like positive reinforcement. We did like a hackathon, and then anyone who made a skill, we gave them a little award, a little small reward. And then I think it catches on. Like people talk about it. It's taken us a little while, and I think we kind of had this hackathon moment where we saw anybody, like someone in our docs team, someone in our research team, so like everybody did something, and they go, okay, this is easy, I could do it. And now it's like we're seeing this exponential usage, I think. So I think you want to create a culture. Like you want to really enable them. At some point, you do have to kind of like press on the laggards, but I don't think we need to. I think people have realized that this is such a catalyst for growth, such a catalyst for like even your happiness, for lack of a better word, that I think people are doing it, and we're really embracing it. Like no limits. Like we're not going to put any limits on your usage. Just embrace it and use it, and then share. Like I think the share is important because I think I've like learned from so many people like how they're using it so differently than me. So that I think we kind of ask them to share the good and the bad and how they're innovating with AI, like where are the gaps and how they can teach us. So I think it's an important phase to do that.
I've seen some of the vibe coding tools creating collaborative playgrounds, which I think is really powerful because they already set up the right context for people to get started without worrying too much about connecting the dots and all of that and kind of learning from each other. The other thing you said about the unlimited usage, I think I want to learn more because you're right. Back in the day, the standard price for SaaS product per user was maybe 20 to $100 a month. But now the reference point is not the seat. It's more the human you might be replacing, right? So the price you can justify for the right product is higher. But at the same time, bills can be very high. Like you can see on X, like people say, "Oh my God, I spent $7,000 on Cursor, whatever." So, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a high level, as a vendor, we need to provide more value. Like I think now we've got the tool, so like I think that's kind of what I'm telling my team. Like, okay, what you did before is probably not enough, and we need to innovate more and provide customers with a lot of value because we're seeing so many aspects of our life change. So we could write more code, we could do more designs, we could. So I think there's an element that I think you'll see a lot of innovative software companies do that, where they provide so much value. I think on monetization, you're right. Like I think if you have one user in the company that's AI and it's leveraging a lot, that you kind of want to monetize on that. So you don't want to say, okay, well, it's one seat. So I do think you're going to see monetizations that are more consumption-based, Fivetran being consumption-based for a long time. So I think that's a better model. But you also will see like I think the value quotient has to increase. So what you did pre-AI, you must do way more than that for customers now. And then they're going to be like, okay, so it makes sense now. So the equilibrium has shifted. So you kind of want to push a ton more value as a software company to your vendors. But I think the model at which that you do is probably still consumption. And I think that's the right model. And in the world of agents, it makes a ton more sense to be consumption oriented.
That's why I think where the world is converging. Like if one extreme is user based, is a seat based, and the other extreme is outcome based, I think consumption based is a nice middle ground, because ultimately quoting on outcomes that you cannot fully control, even though it sounds great for the user, is it's kind of risky and not always fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's this. I mean, you are hearing some chatter on outcome based. It's very hard to do, right? And services companies have tried doing outcome based for many years, and have not been successful because there are lots of things you don't control in a company. It's like, are they going to give the resources? Is their business process on time? And like, how do you really define an outcome? Then like it gets, companies don't want to share a lot of information. But if it's like a very transparent value metric that's consumption based, and and don't get me wrong, software vendors have to innovate to drive more, like that sort of what the value that you get needs to be higher. And I think it's a very transparent way to derive value for your company. So I think that continues.
I was listening to a conversation with the creator of Claude. He mentioned that for their own team, they are empowering them to use as many tokens as they want, the latest models, because ultimately, if you have one of those 10x PM or 10x engineers, you don't want them to be limited, at least today.
Yeah, 100% agree, right? And it doesn't even mean like you're a 10x engineer. Anyone will get better, right? Like you take anyone in your team, they're going to be like, they've increased their capacity. Certainly like people who are at the top of the game, they're going to get a lot more out of this. So yeah, you don't want to, like, what is it? Like it's like 10% of the cost that you sort of incur. It's like nominal when you think about it. So yeah, you definitely want to drive AI. I think I heard of that from Boris, where he talked about like, hey, they built Cloud Code using Cloud Code, which is interesting, right? And clearly they have access to the coolest model. So maybe I don't know what model he was using, 5.0 or whatever, but I think that principle makes a lot of sense, that you have this amazing technology now and you don't want to rate limit it. Like, why would you rate limit innovation? And I think that sounds silly.
Also, like the irony of all of this is that people who are truly AI native are working much harder. It's not like they are automating mundane stuff only. It's that they are literally 24/7 with agents, including weekends, right?
I know. Like it's like I mean I'm sure you have too. Like people have now built their own personal Macs that are. I had a personal Mac that wasn't used in a long time, and now it's sort of become my personal sort of task agent that it's doing things. And so, yeah, I think it's great that you can now be more productive. You don't have to be in front of a computer, or you go take a walk, go pick up your kid from school, do the things, and your agents are hard at work, and you're getting the productivity, right?
As an anecdote, I bought a Mac Mini recently, and the sales rep that took care of me already knew or assumed what I wanted to use it for.
Yes, I heard I heard it's hard to get a Mac Mini these days because everyone's doing it.
Anjan, it's been awesome to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Carlos. I enjoyed it. Bye.